Dame Hilary Mary Mantel was a British writer whose work includes historical fiction, personal memoirs, and short stories. Her first published novel, Every Day is Mother's Day, was released in 1985. She went on to write 12 novels, 2 collections of short stories, a personal memoir, and numerous articles and opinion pieces. Mantel won the Booker Prize twice. The first was for her 2009 novel Wolf Hall, a fictional account of Thomas Cromwell's rise to power in the court of Henry VIII, and the second was for its 2012 sequel Bring Up the Bodies. The third installment of the Cromwell trilogy, The Mirror and the Light, was long-listed for the same prize. Early life. Hilary Mary Thompson was born on July 6, 1952 in Glossop, Derbyshire, the eldest of 3 children, with 2 younger brothers, and raised as a Roman Catholic in the mill village of Hadfield where she attended St. Charles Roman Catholic Primary School. Her parents, Margaret and Henry Thompson, were both Catholics of Irish descent, born in England. When Mantel was 7, her mother's lover, Jack Mantel, moved in with the family. He shared a bedroom with her mother, while her father moved to another room. 4 years later, when she was 11, the family, except for her father, moved to Romiley, Cheshire, to escape the local gossip. She never saw her father again. When the family relocated, Jack Mantel became her unofficial stepfather, and she legally took his surname. She attended Harrytown Convent School in Romiley, Cheshire. In 1970, she began studies at the London School of Economics to read law. She transferred to the University of Sheffield and graduated as a Bachelor of Jurisprudence in 1973. After university, Mantel worked in the social work department of a geriatric hospital and then as a sales assistant at Kendall's department store in Manchester. In 1973 she married Gerald McEwen, a geologist. In 1974, she began writing a novel about the French Revolution, but was unable to find a publisher. In 1977 Mantel moved to Botswana with her husband where they lived for the next 5 years. Later, they spent 4 years in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. She later said that leaving Jeddah felt like the happiest day of life. She published memoirs of this period in The Spectator, and the London Review of Books. Literary career. Mantel's first novel, Every Day is Mother's Day, was published in 1985, and its sequel, Vacant Possession, a year later. After returning to England, she became the film critic of The Spectator, a position she held from 1987 to 1991, and a reviewer for a number of papers and magazines in Britain and the United States. Her third novel, 8 Months on Gaza Street, drew on her life in Saudi Arabia. It features a threatening clash of values between the neighbors in a city apartment block to explore the tensions between Islamic culture and the liberal West. Her Winifred Holtby Memorial Prize-winning novel Flood is set in 1956 in a fictitious northern village called Feather Houghton, centering on a Roman Catholic church and a convent. A mysterious stranger brings about transformations in the lives of those around him. Mantel was a Booker Prize judge in 1990, when A.S. Byatt's novel Possession was awarded the prize. A Place of Greater Safety won the Sunday Express Book of the Year award, for which her 2 previous books had been shortlisted. A long and historically accurate novel, it traces the career of 3 French revolutionaries, Danton, Robespierre, and Camille Desmoulins, from childhood to their early deaths during the Reign of Terror of 1794. A Change of Climate, set in rural Norfolk, explores the lives of Ralph and Anna Eldred, as they raise their 4 children and devote their lives to charity. It includes chapters about their early married life as missionaries in South Africa, when they were imprisoned and deported to Bechuanaland, and the tragedy that occurred there. An Experiment in Love, which won the Hawthornden Prize, takes place over 2 university terms in 1970. It follows the progress of 3 girls, 2 friends and 1 enemy as they leave home and attend university in London. Margaret Thatcher makes a cameo appearance in this novel, which explores women's appetites and ambitions, and suggests how they are often thwarted. Though Mantel used material from her own life, it is not an autobiographical novel. Her next book, The Giant, O'Brien, is set in the 1780s, and is based on the true story of Charles Byrne. He came to London to earn money by displaying himself as a freak. His bones hang today in the Museum of the Royal College of Surgeons. The novel treats O'Brien and his antagonist, the Scots surgeon John Hunter, less as characters in history than as mythic protagonists in a dark and violent fairytale, necessary casualties of the Age of Enlightenment. She adapted the book for BBC Radio 4, in a play starring Alex Norton and Francis Temelty. In 2003 Mantel published her memoir, Giving Up the Ghost, which won the Mind Book of the Year award. That same year she brought out a collection of short stories, Learning to Talk. All the stories deal with childhood and, taken together, the books show how the events of a life are mediated as fiction. Her 2005 novel, Beyond Black, was shortlisted for the Orange Prize and longlisted for the Booker Prize in 2005. Novelist Pat Barker said it was the book that should actually have won the Booker. Set in the late 1990s and early 2000s, it features a professional medium, Alison Hart, whose calm and jolly exterior conceals grotesque psychic damage. She trails around with her a troupe of fiends, who are invisible but always on the verge of becoming flesh. The long novel Wolf Hall, about Henry VIII's minister Thomas Cromwell, was published in 2009 to critical acclaim. The book won that year's Booker Prize and, upon winning the award, Mantel said, "I can tell you at this moment I am happily flying through the air." Judges voted 3-2 in favor of Wolf Hall for the prize. Mantel was presented with a trophy and a £50,000 cash prize during an evening ceremony at the Guildhall, London. The panel of judges, led by the broadcaster James Naughtie, described Wolf Hall as an extraordinary piece of storytelling. Leading up to the award, the book was backed as the favourite by bookmakers and accounted for 45% of the sales of all the nominated books. It was the first favourite since 2002 to win the award. On receiving the prize, Mantel said that she would spend the prize money on sex and drugs and rock and roll. The sequel to Wolf Hall, called Bring Up the Bodies, was published in May 2012 to wide acclaim. It won the 2012 Costa Book of the Year and the 2012 Booker Prize. Mantel thus became the first British writer and the first woman to win the Booker Prize more than once. Mantel was the 4th author to receive the award twice, following J. M. Coetzee, Peter Carey, and J. G. Farrell. This award also made Mantel the first author to win the award for a sequel. The books were adapted into plays by the Royal Shakespeare Company and were produced as a mini-series by BBC. In 2020 Mantel published the 3rd novel of the Thomas Cromwell trilogy, called The Mirror and the Light. The Mirror and the Light was selected for the long list for the 2020 Booker Prize. She was also working on a short non-fiction book, titled The Woman Who Died of Robespierre, about the Polish playwright Stanisława Pierzyńska. Mantel also wrote reviews and essays, mainly for The Guardian, the London Review of Books and the New York Review of Books. The Culture Show programme on BBC Two broadcast a profile of Mantel on September 17, 2011. In December 2016, Mantel spoke with Kenyan review editor David H. Lynn on the KR podcast about the way historical novels are published, what it is like to live in the world of one character for more than 10 years, writing for the stage, and the final book in her Thomas Cromwell trilogy, The Mirror and the Light. She delivered 5 2017 Wreath lectures on BBC Radio 4, talking about the theme of historical fiction. Her final one of these lectures was on the theme of adaptation of historical novels for stage or screen. Mantel's lectures were selected by its producer, Jim Frank, as amongst the best of the long-running series. Personal life and death. Mantel married Gerald McEwen in 1973. They divorced in 1981 but remarried in 1982. McEwen gave up geology to manage his wife's business. They lived in Budleigh Salterton, Devon. During her 20s, Mantel had a debilitating and painful illness. She was initially diagnosed with a psychiatric illness, hospitalized, and treated with antipsychotic drugs, which reportedly produced psychotic symptoms. In consequence, Mantel refrained from seeking help from doctors for some years. Finally, in Botswana and desperate, she consulted a medical textbook and realized she was probably suffering from a severe form of endometriosis, a diagnosis confirmed by doctors in London. The condition and necessary surgery, a surgical menopause at the age of 27, left her unable to have children, and continued to disrupt her life. She later said, "You've thought your way through questions of fertility and menopause and what it means to be without children because it all happened catastrophically." This led Mantel to see the problematist woman's body as a theme in her writing. She later became patron of the Endometriosis She Trust. Mantel died on September 22, 2022, aged 70, at a hospital in Exeter, from complications of a stroke that had occurred 3 days earlier. Views. During her university years, Mantel identified as a socialist, and was a member of the Young Communist League. Comments on royalty. In a 2013 speech on media and royal women at the British Museum, Mantel commented on Catherine Middleton, then the Duchess of Cambridge, saying that Middleton was forced to present herself publicly as a personality-free shop window mannequin whose sole purpose is to deliver an heir to the throne. Mantel expanded on these views in an essay, Royal Bodies, for the London Review of Books. It may be that the whole phenomenon of monarchy is irrational, but that doesn't mean that when we look at it we should behave like spectators at Bedlam. Cheerful curiosity can easily become cruelty. These remarks stimulated substantial public debate. The leader of the opposition Ed Miliband and Prime Minister David Cameron both criticised Mantel's remarks, while Jemima Khan defended Mantel. Xingzheng praised the LRB essay, finding the clarity of prose and analysis is just incredible. Margaret Thatcher. In September 2014, in an interview published in The Guardian, Mantel said she had fantasized about the murder of the British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher in 1983, and fictionalized the event in a short story called The Assassination of Margaret Thatcher, August 6, 1983. Allies of Thatcher called for a police investigation, to which Mantel responded, "Bringing in the police for an investigation was beyond anything I could have planned or hoped for, because it immediately exposes them to ridicule." Comments on Catholicism. Mantel discussed her religious views in her 2003 memoir, Giving Up the Ghost. Brought up as a Roman Catholic, she ceased to believe at age 12, but said the religion left a permanent mark on her. Real cliché, the sense of guilt. You grow up believing that you're wrong and bad. And for me, because I took what I was told really seriously, it bred a very intense habit of introspection and self-examination and a terrible severity with myself. So that nothing was ever good enough. It's like installing a policeman, and one moreover who keeps changing the law. In a 2013 interview with The Telegraph, Mantel stated, "I think that nowadays the Catholic Church is not an institution for respectable people. When I was a child I wondered why priests and nuns were not nicer people. I thought that they were amongst the worst people I knew." These statements, as well as the themes explored in her earlier novel Flood, led the Catholic bishop Mark O'Toole to comment, "There is an anti-Catholic thread there is no doubt about it. Wolf Hall is not neutral." List of works. Novels. Every Day is Mother's Day series. Every Day is Mother's Day, Chatto and Windus, 1985. Vacant Possession, Chatto and Windus, 1986. 8 Months on Gaza Street, Viking Press, 1988. Flood, Viking Press, 1989. A Place of Greater Safety, Viking Press, 1992. A Change of Climate, Viking Press, 1994. An Experiment in Love, Viking Press, 1995. The Giant, O'Brien, 4th Estate, 1998. Beyond Black, 4th Estate, 2005. Thomas Cromwell Series. Wolf Hall, 4th Estate, 2009. Bring Up the Bodies, 4th Estate, 2012. The Mirror and the Light, 4th Estate, March 5, 2020. ISBN 978-0007480999. Short Story Collections. Learning to Talk. King Billy is a Gentleman. Destroyed. Curved is the Line of Beauty. Learning to Talk. Third Floor Rising. The Clean Slate. The Assassination of Margaret Thatcher. Sorry to Disturb. Comma. The Long QT. Winter Break. Harley Street. Offences against the person. How shall I know you? The heart fails without warning. Terminus. The English School. The Assassination of Margaret Thatcher. Memoir. Giving Up the Ghost. Selected articles and essays. What a Man This Is, with his crowd of women around him. London Review of Books, March 30, 2000. Some Girls Want Out, London Review of Books, v26 No. 5, pg 1418, March 4, 2004. Diary, London Review of Books, November 4, 2010. Royal Bodies, London Review of Books, February 21, 2013. Blot, Erase, Delete, How the Author Found Her Voice and Why All Writers Should Resist the Urge to Change Their Past Words, Index Censorship, September 2016. Awards and Honors.